This is the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast.
Welcome to the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast. I'm Seth. This is Aradia. We are here to talk about the Wheel of Time. It's something we've been doing now for many, many years on the podcast. And as we convert to a visual medium, we are converting to a visual medium, I suppose.
It's, clearly we have faces for radio. And all of our skills are over there on that medium, so we're a little rough. We're going to stumble our way through this, and we hope you enjoy the ride. We love talking about Wheel of Time with a four-dimensional context, looking at all the things that the books give us from the last book to the first book. All of that, that's our jam. We really enjoy talking to each other about it, and people apparently like listening to us yell about it. So that's cool. And yeah, we have some practice. And with the show coming out, we couldn't not respond. We couldn't not pause our book reread and move our attention over here. We couldn't not.
Oh, yeah.
We had to.
That's really what we're doing here. It's like we were going through the books, and we actually managed to drop episode 400 right before the show came out. And we said, we need to stop, get on a visual medium, and talk about this show. That's what we want to do.
And for all of our regular listeners who are following us over here to YouTube, first of all, thank you.
Thank you.
For coming over to this new medium. Maybe you're not into YouTube normally, and you're here just for us. Maybe you're normally into YouTube and you just happen to never follow us. Either way, super glad you're here. And yeah, now you get to see us. We have been releasing videos of our faces for a little while now, doing the live recordings of the podcast, but those don't get a lot of views, so we know you mostly haven't seen us. But here we are. Welcome to our new experiment. Thanks for joining the party. Yeah, we're here today to talk about our initial overview reactions of the first three episodes. So basically what we're going to do with this channel is we're going to do a quick reaction that doesn't really get deep into the content right after we watch the episodes. So, Thursday, Friday was when they were coming out. I watched them last night. I've only watched them once. I haven't rewatched them. We're going to kind of give our overview impressions on Saturday. Or maybe Friday, I guess, since now they're coming out on Thursday. I don't know what we're going to do. We're going to give a quick overview reaction here. And then on Tuesdays, over on our Discord server, just like we've always recorded podcast episodes, we're going to record a deep dive video episode where we have clips and we have notes and we go through all kinds of stuff that we think and how it relates to the books and our opinions about what's good and what's bad, and generally just gush unabashedly because we love the series. Like, no spoilers. We're really into it.
We'll love it. And we'll have the show up behind us, and we'll talk about the scenes and point things out on screen and do all that. But right now, I have a slightly different experience. I did drive up to Seattle on Monday last week, so I saw the first two episodes and then had a lot of time to sort of stew over it. Saw the third one when it came out on Thursday night, actually. And then yesterday I went back and rewatched all three. So I've seen them all twice. And have had a chance to sort of think about my reaction and have more of a chance to sort of absorb what's going on in these episodes.
Which I know that I won't even begin to be understanding how I feel about this until I've rewatched them, like, at least once.
Yes.
Right, so this is very much just my surface view. Come back on, I guess the episodes are going to probably drop on Thursday. We're going to record them on Tuesday in our Discord server, just like we do normal podcast recordings. So you can join us there for that live, or find them here on YouTube on Thursday. That's going to be the whole, we've rewatched it a bunch of times and really have marinated in it. This is the quick overview. And that's what we're here to do today with 3 episodes,
right.
Which is going to be a little bit different than the subsequent 5 episodes, which will each get their own treatment. So we're going to do the first 3 as a package deal. I think we'll see how this goes.
At least the reaction, yeah. So episode 1, Leavetaking. This is the first of the 3, and really the establishing episode.
It's the pilot.
It's the pilot. It's the pilot. And like a lot of pilots, it does a lot very quickly, and that leads to a few little issues in terms of getting all those characters introduced quickly and making me care about them all quickly enough. But I think they do an amazing job, and I'm very happy. I do think of the 3 episodes, this one is the weakest.
But that is what I expect.
But that's what I expected.
From TV
Yeah.
shows.
Right.
Like if you have a good pilot that holds up against the rest of the season, you're making a very special list in my head.
Right.
Shows don't have good pilots. Pilots are not meant to be good. Pilots are meant to quickly get you prepared for episode 2 and beyond.
Mm-hmm.
That's their job. And I agree. I think this did a really good job of compressing the world building, of taking out the draggy bits, of just slamming us through into our basic ABCs of this world so we can get on to the interesting part where tropes get inverted and characters do unexpected things. And that's what the point.
Yeah, and interwoven in this first episode was the action scenes and the special effects and the Trollocs, and so I mean there was so much. That's my biggest complaint is there was so much in episode 1. You know, I understand why they put it in episode 1, but I would have loved to see it stretched out over 2 episodes. I think it could have breathed over, or like I've seen some shows that do like a 2-hour pilot. I think that would have been a good solution for bringing people in. But they sort of compromised by just releasing the 3 episodes at once. So rather than having a 2-hour pilot and then another episode a week later.
Yeah.
So it's marketing strategy. They know what they're doing, I guess.
Yeah, and it was really fun seeing all those little bits of the trailers and teasers and snippets that we've seen, actually seeing them all put together into the most iconic sequence.
Oh
I mean,
my gosh,
Winter Night is, you can predict it without having ever seen it. It's so classic, and it's such a quintessential part of this story, and they just gave it to us. They just gave us Winter Night. And I have ideas for how we can talk about that in the deep dive. But I really adored seeing Winter Night being given that loving treatment of like, yes, we're going to rush this because you know it, but also we're going to do it right because you know it.
Well, and we saw it, right? This is the difference between what the books did and what the show is doing. The books were Rand's POV, at least for the Eye of the World, right? And
Yeah.
which is not in line with how the rest of the books work at all. The rest of the books are entirely omnipresent.
Right, and the show jumps right into that later book format.
Exactly, and so we jump into that later book format of being from everyone's POV, but that means the show has to invent scenes. Not necessarily what happened, not necessarily what the scene was, right? We all know that there was a Trolloc attack on Winter Night. But that's it. We don't get a lot of details about what
was
happened.
it like?
What was it like? What happened? What did they see? What did they experience?
When they're dancing and then suddenly someone dies and then there's fire and monsters out of stories. I mean, the horror of that moment was like, it was off screen in the books.
Yep.
But that is the sensation that you feel you missed when you read the books. Mm-hmm. You missed that. And then Rafe's like, no, you didn't.
No. Here it is. You know. We get to see Nynaeve's POV, although that's not till book 3.
Yeah, I love getting to see more of her off the bat.
Episode 3, excuse me, not book 3.
Yeah, well, yeah, she's in book 1, but it's getting into all their heads sooner. I'd say, I don't even know what I could say my favorite part of episode 1 was. It's just seeing the world, seeing the texture come out, knowing that this is going to be worth my time. That was my favorite part of episode 1, was being like, all right, I can settle in. Like all I could say after it. So I watched this with my never reader husband, who nonetheless has absorbed the series, right? For those of you who don't know, my husband has absorbed the series by osmosis. He does not read them. And we got to the end, and all I could say to him was like, I'll take it.
Yeah.
I'll take it. I'll take it. I'm just like flapping and like, I'll take it. And then he, who had said he'd only commit to watching 1 episode, was like, oh yeah, I'm sitting down for episode 2. Oh yeah, no, I'm not going. Oh, I'm here. Like, so.
And my favorite reactions have been from non-book readers. They universally love it. Book readers have mixed reactions, and I get that. There's changes that are being made. Absolutely. And it's like having your children murdered, right? Like, which ones do you choose to have killed? You know, but that's the thing about having it adapted to TV. You are going to have to kill some of your babies, right? Like, the conversation between Tom and Moraine did not happen in the Two Rivers. That's my favorite scene from the early Wheel of Time books. I wanted to see them meet. I wanted to see them have that conversation, that verbal sparring. That's the complexity that I love, but I know it's not there, you know? And so, yeah, that was one of my babies that he killed. I get absolutely why he didn't have Tom introduced. It doesn't make sense. Well, I think even if you go back and listen to our episodes back then, we're like, it's weird that Tom's there. It almost seems like he's a red herring for the guy in the dark cloak. He's really there to give you this different sort of what-if mystery to fill your time in the beginning of Eye of the World.
Yeah.
And it's not necessary.
Yeah.
So, the more on my rewatch, I really felt like I got why he cut what he cut, as I started to understand where he was going with the characters.
That's a lot of what I want to get into in our deep dive, is like, I can see the love of the series in how they compressed and edited what they kept.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I mean, I think to that point also, like, I don't even want to get into what I didn't like about the episode, because that's just pure deep dive territory. There is no overview of what I didn't like about the first episode.
No, because what I didn't like about the first episode is in little details and small choices. And
Lila Ibarra.
Lila, yes.
That's the amount of overview I can do. I have a lot to say there, but there's no overview.
I thought
Lila Ibarra is a thing I have feelings about, like everybody does.
Yeah.
So
it was effective. It was extremely
I have
effective.
complicated feelings.
Yeah.
I do not have unilateral, straight ahead, single sentence feelings.
No,
I have
yeah.
complicated feelings. And if you know me, this is not surprising.
Right. I mean, we've talked about how, many times on the podcast, about how stepping over the body of dead women is not a great way to give men character development. Like, that's not...
It's called fridging.
Yeah.
It's a whole thing.
It's a whole thing. And we don't particularly like it. At the same time, it certainly gives him a reason to hate the axe and hate the weapon. The philosophy of she only made tools, not weapons, that Matt gives to him later is part of that. So, you know, I can see where they're shoehorning that mental stuff that's going on in his head into that murder. Are there other ways to do that? Maybe. Were there better ways to do it? Probably.
Was it unnecessary? Yes.
Yeah.
Was it done badly? Yes.
Ooh,
Does
yeah.
it have the ability to make sense ultimately if we squint and do mental gymnastics? Yes.
I'm hoping for flashbacks to explain some more, right? Like, there's certain things that we don't know about their relationship that if we never get an explanation for, I will be upset about.
Yeah, I don't have short thoughts.
So
I'm trying to keep it to short thoughts.
So obviously, like, we do not, we're not here to say this was the ideal, perfect solution. But let me tell you what it wasn't. Legend of the Seeker. Right? Or Shannara Chronicles. Or any of the 1,000 other terrible fantasy adaptations that take only a passing glance at the characters and the meaning behind them and just absorb it. Yeah, we lost some of our favorite details. Yeah, they added a problematic death. But this is the Wheel of Time. And that's what at the end of episode 1, I went, okay, we are getting the Wheel of Time. That was Emmons Field. These are our characters. They all have... Matt feels like Matt. Perrin feels like Perrin to me. Rand feels like LTT, but anyway.
He's got a fuzzy sweater.
He's got a fuzzy sweater. Yeah, fine. I
can smell it.
I can smell
it. It's the
yeah.
sensation. It's, to return to that concept, I'm getting the sensation of reading the books for the first time. I am getting that experience. This is the Wheel of Time, and I don't know what's going to happen next. And I am as happy as a pig in shit.
Me too. Like,
and that is, just in case it wasn't obvious, that is the tone that this channel will be taking. We are going to have thoughts and complicated feelings, and we are going to be unabashedly positive. And if that's not for you, there's a lot of other places on the internet to go have that energy.
Right.
We're not going to tolerate it here. We are fucking happy. So come along for the ride or go find a different ride.
Right. And so, I mean, let's go to a different place here. Let's go to the acting.
They are themselves. Fuck, they are themselves. The Spock eyebrow, Lan's Spock eyebrow. It's one of the very first shots you get of him. Is just this perfect Leonard Nimoy Spock eyebrow, and I'm just like, he's Lan.
Yeah.
It's yes, acting. Mwah.
The acting's great.
Also, the music is something that I have not gotten into yet, just because I haven't had the brain space. I love the musical choices.
Oh, good.
I am so, like, I need to go listen to the whole album now, because now I've heard the music in context. I'm like, oh, interesting choices. I want to hear that sans Foley and sans visuals. I just want to hear that now. Like, ooh, the music.
The music seems to be a lot of mixing, right? They're taking there's the themes that are in the soundtrack, and then the music in the show seems like they'll pull from this theme, and then that theme, and then that theme, and mix it together to create something that's entirely new and different, depending on who's coming together. So it's very interesting to hear just sort of the raw music on the albums, and then what appears to be more of an amalgamation of the different notes. And when I say note, the sort of, the elements, the pieces, right, that come together into this sort of new piece of music, and the way they use the threading.
Love it.
It's good. I'm really excited. I'm not great with my ear. I'm gonna have to do a rewatch just like with my eyes closed and just listen.
That would honestly be a really valuable thing, because Foley and sound design are also a big part of making place.
Yep.
And I was trying to pay attention to that the first time through, but definitely subsequent listens, I'm going to be doing a lot of, like, what's the background? Like, are there details in the soundscape? Because that helps make the realism. And
yeah, I saw something about a whistle. There's like a whistle in the beginning of each one, and that might mean something. Or somewhere in each episode. So anyway, I'm gonna. There's details to pull out of the sound, I think, for sure.
So many.
Yeah. But all the characters did a great job. And some of the actors who I struggled to picture as the characters, just from acting shots and profile, once I started the show, that went away. Like, immediately, I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. That's Matt. That's Perrin.
Oh,
right? Like,
so God,
quickly.
yes. Yeah. And my husband's like, so that one's Paul Atreides? Because we just watched Dune. I'm like, yes,
basically.
meet Paul.
Yep.
There you go.
Yep. So he has no question who the dragon is then.
Oh, no. Well, he doesn't. It wasn't a question. I mean, he knows the series backwards and forwards because I'm the way he knows it. But yeah, he's like, so that's Paul. I mean, like, first shot. So that's Paul. Yes.
Right off the bat.
Yes, it is. Should we move on to episode 2?
Let's go to episode 2. Shadows Waiting. I think that was enough of, like, introduction and characters, and special effects were great. Like, all that stuff. Like, these landscapes behind us, well, these aren't from the show, but
no, these are just Google searches.
Right. But yeah, the show, the beautiful overhead shots. I mean,
oh my God.
Yeah.
All the ruins. Oh, the ruins.
Yeah, the ruins. Do you think those are Age of Legends ruins, or are they...
There are many, many eras of ruins.
Yeah.
The world of the Wheel of Time, as Robert Jordan describes it, has ruins spanning all the millennia, all the centuries. That one that we got in that panning shot from the Red Aja situation, it was pretty intact to be Age of Legends, but it's an old one. If it's not Age of Legends, it's right after Age of Legends. That gave me... I mean, I thought it was a karst landscape. I thought they were shooting in, like, deep eroded limestone country in China or something. And then I saw that it was buildings, because I literally thought that it was just geologic formations, because literally cool towers like that exist in parts of the world. It's called karst. It's gorgeous. And then I realized it was buildings. So that's an old ruin. But I bet we see ruins from more than just the Age of Legends. But they'll probably also want us to think they're mostly Age of Legends because they're simplifying the world. But I just love that we're seeing ruins. Like, every other landscape shot is like a ruin.
Totally. Where do you think they were located in the world in that first shot? That's one of the few shots that I can't actually place. Near the two rivers. But then, like, Moraine went off to the two rivers and Leandrin went off to Ghealdan. So...
Well, all the Aes Sedai are converging on Ghealdan to deal with Loghain. So I kind of assumed that Moraine was, like, tailing Leandrin on the way, and, like, it was like, but we're both basically going the same way, and then we split, like, at the last. That was kind of my assumption vaguely, but again, rewatches and deep diving, I might have a different opinion.
Right. Yeah, we definitely.
But yeah, Shadow's Waiting.
Shadow's Waiting. Yeah.
We open with the Whitecloaks, which was
That's-
so horrifying. And I mean, as I told my husband, you don't trust the people in white.
No.
You have a big panning drone shot of nothing but white fabric, you know these are the bad guys. You just do. Especially when there's a small child holding a fancy dish walking in a terrified way. So you don't need to know anything else. You know these are bad people. Yeah, because Wheel of Time, or Eye of the World, is a loving paean to tropes before the rest of the series shreds them.
It is, yeah. Which is also why, it's not that happy to get away from them. Interesting. What did you think about the cutting off the Aes Sedai's hands to incapacitate her and then tie her up?
That is one of those points where I'm like, I need some more world building before I can form an opinion about how I feel about that. Because off the bat, I don't like it. I don't like the idea that Aes Sedai need their hands to channel. But there's my hands. There's all that hand waving you Aes Sedai do. There is canonical reasons for them to be leaning into this. I want there to be more on-screen world building to justify that. And I understand them not doing it off the bat. I like them leaving us with, how the fuck? And then we're going to learn more later. I'm fine with that.
But my headcanon, because of those quotes, has always been that Aes Sedai from the tower do much more hand-wavy channeling than almost any of the channelers, right? Something about their culture has had them add hand-waving to channeling.
Right.
And so... it makes sense that once, also, it looked like she was pretty beat up. So I'm imagining somebody punches in their face, knocks her out while she's unconscious, chop off her hands and tie her up. There's nothing she can do,
Whereas the way we see the Supergirls interact is like your hands being tied might inhibit what you can do. But if you are in the last extreme of your life and dying... you'd figure out how to set all the tents on fire. You'd figure out how to cut your own throat. Something.
Right.
You would figure out. The idea that they are totally incapacitated, I'm struggling with. But I'm willing to have the world building give me reasons why that's more ironclad in the show versus in the books.
Yeah, and the show does seem to lean into the movement, right? Rosenpike has talked about that like, she's sort of... she decided as producer and Moraine that movement
I love that she helps produce
it.
Yeah,
she's like, no, this is what we're doing. We are making movements part of channeling, and you can.
And she believes it as an actress, so it works.
Right.
This actress isn't being told to wave her arms, and she doesn't know what the director means. She does know what the director means. She is the director. It works. She believes it, and the CGI coming in afterward just lets us see what she's seeing, and that makes the acting really good.
Totally.
I also like that the Whitecloaks are being made more dangerous.
Yeah.
And if
absolutely.
we need to change the canon a little bit to make them more dangerous because they're cartoonishly incompetent, works for me.
Yeah.
I always didn't like that they were so scary but so incompetent. Like one or the other. Pick it. And Rafe has picked it, and I'm down for his rationale.
I think Jordan's point was always they were bullies. Right, they didn't have any actual real power. They just pretended to, and everyone gave them that power. And so that's what gave them the power is saying we have the power, and that's what, all you have to do is stand up to the bully, and they back down. But I like that, let's make the bully actually big and strong instead of just like a weak pretend fully.
Yeah. And then the other really, so there's the ferry scene. There's so much to talk about with the ferry scene. I don't know if we want to get into that now because we'll just deep dive it.
Well, yeah, let's deep dive it. I mean, they cross the ferry. It hits the beat that it hits in the story. They get across the ferry. It separates them from the Trollocs and the Fade and gives them breathing room.
We've got Egwene learning she can channel. We've got the dreams, which I loved the transition to bats instead of rats.
Sure, yeah. I mean,
it's a completely meaningless change, and I love it. Like, it's just horrifying. It would have been just as bad with rats, but I guess because they're in the woods, bats make more sense.
Right. If they're in the city,
they're literally flying rodents. Like, but biologically speaking, there's no difference.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
They're not rodents. They are rodents. whatever.
I guess the only issue I have is they're not necessarily carrion eaters. They eat insects mostly.
Sure, or they're frutivores.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which kind
and
of
that connection with death thing. It's maybe they're going with more of a connection with nighttime.
Yeah.
Which is lazier storytelling, but also more efficient for giving them animals to work with.
Sure.
Again, a lot of my critiques of the show are tempered with the fact that I can see why they made those changes from a production perspective.
Right.
Even though I know very, very little about production. I've never worked in the industry, but I've cared about it for a long time. And most of my critiques come with, but I understand because technical reasons.
Yeah.
Very few of my critiques are just like, that was a dumb decision, end of story.
No, and
there's a couple, but most of them are tempered.
And the bats to me go down to, we can only have so many locations. We're filming a lot of the stuff in the woods instead of in inns. Therefore, we can't have rats because rats are in inns, not in forests. What's in a forest that's not a rat that would represent? Well, we can do flying rats. Perfect. Let's do bats. And it's
bats, vampires, evil.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, it fits a theme, and I get why they do that, because they have located for budgetary reasons. It's like there's bats, not because bats are cheaper than rats, but because bats make more sense in the forest, and the forest is a cheaper place to film than a whole manufactured inn.
And their continuity experts and their fans who love the series realize that changing it to bats will break the fans' hearts less than adding rats that don't make sense in a forest.
Right.
Just to stick to the letter of the story versus the spirit,
And
as Rafe said, the spine.
And we see Grendel use pigeons. It's not like they.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the other... okay, well, the Shadar Logoth, that's a whole thing. The other thing that I just will go off about is, what the fuck was up with Moraine's wound? But I don't want to deep dive that now.
What do you mean,
I have questions about the wound sequence.
Oh, I'm curious.
About the part where she doesn't die
Oh,
for days.
Yeah, that's...
I have questions.
She uses her arm an awful lot for someone who's had a through and through wound.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's poison that's supposed to kill within hours.
Oh, I assume that the Trolloc poison, that her wound wasn't poisoned. That Tam's was.
I think it was.
I thought hers was just...
No, that's the whole thing
Yeah.
with sending the Whitecloaks off to chase Trollocs. Like, it just... That's a continuity jar for me. But... regardless, I think Shadar Logoth is the really big, important overview thing, because we're trying to stay on overview topics. Shadar Logoth, beautiful, creepy, loved it, scenery, the character building scenes that happened within it. Interesting twist on the narrative, because Moraine is basically incapacitated when they go in and stays that way because they don't have Nynaeve. The lack of Nynaeve really changes a lot.
Yeah. I love that quote. If Nynaeve was here, she'd be...
Yeah, I was like, well, first of all, to have Matt deliver that line, so appropriate.
Matt's lines are great.
So,
even his body language, when he went to sit down next to Perrin and was like kicking the tiles out of the way, like the whole theater was busting a laugh. And like, how do you say to an actor, like, okay, go sit down over there and be funny about it, right? Like... But he's just very Matt. I think Barney Harris is nailing Matt. Like, just absolutely. His one-liners, his body language, his, we can't leave them.
God.
I'm pretty sure we can. Like those sort of, like, they're written very, and that's the sort of writing. When we say we've got good writers on this thing, like those are more Matt lines than anything Sanderson wrote.
Yeah, totally. It's so good. I'm loving his Matt, and I'm so excited for the new actor to steal our hearts, but it's really heartbreaking to fall in love with this Matt knowing that we only get one season.
But he's setting a bar, which is great.
Which is fine.
Yeah.
Which is fine.
Yeah. He's setting a high bar. So that's sort of, I can have high expectations of his replacement. It's fine.
Which is fine.
Yeah.
And then Nynaeve shows up, which is good. Because
that's
Nynaeve's obviously she's going to show up, but her and Lan's romance is like so fucking fiery.
and in episode 3 it really
knives after knives after knives
fires off in episode 3 for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, one question: Beelzemon.
Oh, so what was the question?
What do you think about the fact that he's appearing in the dreams? What do you think about his appearance? Do you like that they're teasing it this early?
I love that they're teasing him this early. He's a little bit like 8-bit
Space lizard?
Yeah.
There's something weird going on with his face, and I like. I wish he was more normal looking with fiery eyes and mouth. They've got him very. I can see where they're trying to make him be the Dark One. They're trying to make us think he's the Dark One, and so he looks less human.
Yeah. The thing I like a lot is that he hasn't said anything yet.
Mm-hmm.
I like the menace of the fact that he's showing up with no coherent pattern, no demands, he's just showing up at the edges of these freaky things happening, and that makes it way more of a psychological horror thing, which I think is what Ishii was trying to do.
Yes.
And all of his like weird like mustache twirling nonsense really didn't do that, but that's what he was going for, and I feel like this is giving us that energy more than Bookish Shamael did. Which is fine.
Yeah. No, and I like that that's how we know it's a dream, right? Look in the windows for the fiery eyes. And, you're in a dream shard, I love that they're not shying away from dreams, which is super important to the series.
Yeah.
Right? It's as important as channeling.
I loved when Rafe was like, how would you tell the story without the dream world? It's like, there are 3 constants. Mm-hmm. That is one of the... How do you... That's part of the world. I loved his response to that. Again, spine of the story.
So, I think this is spiny. What do you think about Mashadar as a black mold rather than a white mist?
To be honest, white mist never made sense to me.
Okay.
Black mold, visually, allegorically, biologically, it makes so much more sense to me to have it be a creeping black mold rather than a white mist. It makes a lot more sense from a TV perspective. Mm-hmm. And I loved how it came in and went away because it was actually chasing the food.
Yep.
It doesn't give it sentience per se. It just gives it like the ability to survive.
Right. It reacts to stimulus.
And I loved that the horse turned into the black dust that was just coating the ground. Like, that's what all the dust is it's every victim who's ever fallen prey to it. I liked it.
Nice.
What about you?
Same. Yeah. No, I think it was very effective. I'm curious to see how it contrasts with the Black Wind. Right? Because these are the 2 things that I've always... We've had the Mashadar, which is sort of the mist, and the Black Wind, Mashin Shin and Mashadar. Like, the names sound familiar. There's a Waygate in Shadar Logoth. Is there some connection between the 2? Is speculation.
Fane does fine with both of them.
Yeah, Fane connects with both of them. There's always been, I've always wanted to make some sort of connection. And also, we don't really have an origin story for the Black Wind, other than it was made, the ways were made by people who had corrupt, by the male half, which was corrupted, and that taint seeped out of the corruption and into the but how do they become a mist? So it'd be interesting to connect those 2 or contrast them, right? That's the other thing. How are they different? How was he going to make the Black Wind and the Black Mold feel different?
Yeah. And also, as a Pacific Northwester, black mold is pretty horrifying. We deal with it a lot, and it's not a good thing. Like, it works for me to see black mold as this horrible, corrosive thing that takes over the whole world. That makes sense.
If 2 Rivers is Portland, does that make Seattle Shadar Logoth? Because everything's just wet and, like, it's devoid of all sentient life and emotion and empathy for other human beings.
Just has Starbucks.
Yeah. God, I did not. If we called for help, I'm sure Seattle would be like, yeah, we'll be right there. And then they turn around and have a bunch of infighting and, turn into Microsoft.
I loved, speaking of turning in on themselves, I loved the story of them building a wall with no gate. Mm-hmm. That, again, something I'm going to go into a lot in the deep dive, compressing the story for more efficient storytelling, that was just mwah, mwah. They took their political behavior and made it a literal piece of infrastructure for the sake of more compressed storytelling. Love it.
They also made the 3 Oaths a direct response to Ardor Hawkwing.
which I also enjoyed. Again, compressing those loops and making you not need to rewatch 17 times
Right.
after they finish season 8 in order to understand. Just telling you right off the bat, like, this was a bargain we made, and moving it in the timeline. It's great.
And then, of course, we get the separation, which here is more like they're just... It's pretty similar. They're just running out, and they happen to be on opposite sides of the...
They get split by Mashadar.
Mashadar, yeah.
That's literally what happens in the series. It just slightly different sequence of events. But yeah, Mashadar shoves the party in 3 different directions.
I saw someone make a joke. When the boys get out of Shadar Logoth, they hop on a log, which is basically when Bail Domon picks them up. So maybe that log is the spray, and Bail Domon's just like a little ant on the log, like... All right, boys, get on.
Oh, that's funny.
So yeah, it doesn't. Speaking of people who look like they've cut, Bail Domon, or at least this version of him, and we may encounter him later on. But
I expect we're going to find him later once boats get introduced as a set that our characters are going to be on. I think we'll get Bail Domon.
Fair.
But it does appear that he's not going to be a river pirate in the opening sequences.
Yar.
Which is, yeah, I feel your pain.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I do be disappointed. I do be. Yeah, so Moraine, Nynaeve appears at the end, and of course then we get that flashback to what actually happened to her on Winter Night in A Place of Safety, which is episode 3.
Yes, episode 3. Let's move into episode
Yep.
3. That flashback was badass. And
That was
turns
fun.
out you were right. She gets the knife from the Trolloc.
Was that what I thought?
Yeah, you
Yeah.
did. I was like, no, she knew there was a knife there. She stashed a knife there because secret wisdom things. And you were like, I think it's a Trolloc, maybe. You were fucking right.
Sweet.
You were totally right. She literally swims up to a Trolloc, pulls out its own knife, and fucking stabs it in the jugular. And fuck, I'm in love.
Ugh. Can we talk about how bloody everything is? Like, the blood just... Like, it's spurting everywhere.
Entrails?
Oh, yeah.
There are just entrails everywhere.
And
Bits and pieces and
heads go flying. Yeah, no, they're not shying away from
The
the
bloody,
blood.
bloody. Oh,
Yeah.
God, it's gross. Yeah, my... I have been recruiting a couple of people on Facebook in my friend circle, and one person's like, "Hey, like, would I like this? I really liked Game of Thrones. Like, would this be something I could get into if I never read the books?" And I was like, "Yeah, absolutely. You don't need to read the books, and if you liked Game of Thrones, absolutely, this will float your boat." And my dad gets on there because it's a mutual friend, and he's like, "Corollary to that, because it's like Game of Thrones, I know I won't like it." And I'm like, "Yes."
Yeah.
In your case, the reasons, the places where it overlaps with Game of Thrones are reasons why you don't want to watch it, even though it's not Game of Thrones.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to open episode 2 with the Aes Sedai scene and not be like, ooh, yeah, there's going to be some torture and bloody and...
Yeah, which is where I'm like, if people like, if I liked Game of Thrones, would I like Wheel of Time? Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely. If that's your bar for entry, I liked Game of Thrones, you will love this series.
if you liked Game of Thrones and just wanted more magic...
And less female nudity.
Yeah. Can't say I'm totally happy about that one.
It's the middle of winter. No, it's the end of winter. No, one of the things I am loving about this is how reasonably muted the curves of the female actors are.
Mm-hmm. Well, they're wearing real clothing.
Exactly. It's a fucking delight that I will go off on in great detail in our deep dive episode, but it's
top-notch costuming.
Really refreshing costuming. Fucking love it on like a billion levels.
Mm-hmm.
Feminism being but one of them. Good costuming department, just all around. Oh, I can't wait to cosplay.
Oh God, I don't even know. I think I'm gonna have to go with Tom. Like throw a wig on and get a corduroy jacket and line the inside with some patches.
And learn how to play a few guitar chords.
Right. Yeah, and like some of the songs aren't that hard. Oh, the songs so far, both amazing songs. Both the thing Tom did, which was all about meeting the Dragon Reborn, which he was doing on that day, and the song, and then the song that the Emmons Fielders sang about Amon's Field. and I'm a little confused about whether there is two. They talk about Terran Ferry as being in the Two Rivers, but then they refer to their town as the Two Rivers. No one has said Emmons Field.
Yeah, I think Emmons Field got cut.
But then how is Terran Ferry in the Two Rivers?
I think that the Two Rivers as a regional designation got cut. I think that's the Misty Mountain towns.
Okay, whatever.
That's my guess. We'll get there on the deep dive.
Yeah.
For now, we should really stick with the place of safety.
Place of safety,
which is kind of catching up with all of the parties as they go about. It's like, okay, the party's been split, and now here's the 3 different story arcs we're going to follow until probably episode 7, maybe 6. These are the 3 tracks.
And if you go back, for me, this is where Otherworld starts. When we really, I mean, there's, yes, in Shadar Logoth, but this is really where we start to get, like, okay, here's the world. And same thing happened to me in this episode, right? This episode is when I fell in love with the Wheel of Time TV show, right? Like, and I had a week between the two, right? I had the first 2 episodes, like, I watched them, I did a lot of thinking, and, there's things we've talked about that I did not like in them. And I came out and be like, yes, this is a good show. They are doing a good job making this show. I could not ask for a better shot. But I didn't love it until episode 3. Does that make sense? I was like...
Yeah.
Yeah, like, I feel like they've hit the groove of... I mean, Dina and the Dark Friend reveal.
Oh my
man.
God.
Just her acting, the whole thing.
And also, can we talk about her septum piercing?
Sure. You like it?
Yes.
Nice.
Yes.
Yeah. No, the piercings are great. Everyone's heavily pierced.
Oh my God, the piercings are amazing. But the fact there's a septum piercing is like, this is not your traditional fantasy, motherfucker.
And Tom had a great line. You can't tell what nation anyone's from based on their height or color or anything like that. He's just basically one of the few things you can tell is that red hair is in the ideal waist.
I know, and they give this shot of the red hair, and you're like, I have seen exactly one redhead in this cast, and we've spent like a third of our camera time on him. I wonder who the dragon is. This is really confusing.
Yeah, first-time readers know already. Or first-time watchers know already.
Yeah,
it's Rand, right?
Nobody is confused. And this is what everyone who had a goddamn brain knew when they started teasing, maybe we don't know who the dragon is, maybe it's a girl. And there were people who were like apparently freaking out in good faith, and it like not ironically freaking out. And it's like, I honestly don't know if I believe that people were honestly freaking out. Because no.
People are just drama queens.
Anyway.
It's interesting to me.
Overview.
Yeah. Dina said 5 of you.
Yes.
Which makes me think the Dark One still is including Nynaeve.
Yes, because there has to be that conversation before Moraine knows that Nynaeve can't be the one. So I loved that introduces more chaos to what the individual characters know about what's happening to them.
Exactly. Yep. Totally.
But Dina, I loved her. I didn't know why she was brought so far forward, but that, oh God, her performance. And also, like, the casual assumption that Matt and Rand were a couple, and Rand casually being like, I'm probably definitely bi, but I'm not with him. It's just like, well, I love that.
See, I interpreted that different. I interpret that as I am not bi, but if I was, I could do better.
Yeah, I don't know how I fall on that because I've only watched it the once, but the casual, not like, oh, we're okay not talking about the gays,
right?
But like, people are in love and people have sex. Mm-hmm. And that's a thing. And like I love, even though it turned into actually this is my murder room where I will stab you and no one can hear you scream, even though it turned into that.
She didn't want to kill him.
Just like, yeah, I loved the fact that it was like Rand wasn't horrified or tried to downplay it. He was just like, no, we're friends. Oh God, that's like my best friend. They'd be like sleeping with my sibling. Ew, no. Yeah. Like that was his revulsion, was that's his best friend, not you think I'm gay? Like.
Also, I think he knows Matt well enough to be like, yeah, no.
Yeah,
like,
no.
that is not a commitment. He's just the difference between Egwene and Matt. Like that.
Right, yeah. He's like, I have standards.
Right.
I have expectations. Yeah, no. I have so many things to say about gender and sexuality and the Wheel of Time in our deep dive video, which will be coming out next week. But
I know we had Tom and his relationship starting with nothing to do with Owen, nothing to do with protecting the boy from Aes Sedai, everything about teaching Matt how to be a trickster. He's beating Matt at his own game. That it's a completely different introduction. Tom is no longer protective over Rand. He doesn't give a shit about Rand. He doesn't even know who Rand is. He stole from Matt and then taught Matt a life lesson about burying the dead.
It's almost like we're picking up with Matt and Tom in Tar Valon. It's almost like that's where their relationship is starting, and we're just excising Tom before that.
Right. Yeah, and
which
just
I'm okay with.
That's
like
fine.
that's the more interesting Tom relationship to me, is when Tom hooks up with Matt and then goes on into the series from there. Like, that's where he gets interesting to me.
I'm curious to find what sort of changes to Tom's backstory they've made. If he's done everything.
Yeah,
like,
I feel like he's going to do a lot of heavy lifting on a story adjustment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because, like, we haven't had Morghese introduced yet. Like, we don't know what his background was there. We haven't, like, we don't know if Owen's a thing. We don't know what his relationship with is Elida, who hasn't been introduced yet. Like, Tom is so entwined with a bunch of characters that are not introduced yet and has a history with them. Because he's by far the most connected of the characters before the beginning of the series. So, you know, his backstory could go through the biggest changes.
Yeah. Which works.
Fine, yeah.
He's the bard. He's the Hoyd. He's the Loki. He's a trickster. He's a shapeshifter. He's got those elements.
Did you catch his cloak?
I didn't.
It was just half a second. He flips it on the inside. It's lined with it's patched.
I mean, I remember that from like a photo leak a billion years ago, people talking about that, but I didn't actually see it yet because I haven't rewatched it obsessively. At
I actually caught it on the
0.5x.
first watch. I was looking for it because I knew it was on the inside, so I was looking for that flip, and I caught it.
I was just so distracted by how much I didn't like his singing voice.
Really?
I loved the fact that he was singing and that he can play guitar, but just as a person who listens to singers, I don't like his quality of voice.
It's very rough.
So that was very distracting to me. I will come to love it because it's Tom, and clearly he's doing a good job. But I generally don't like voices that sound like his.
I loved it.
Awesome.
Yeah. And when she was like, "Are we all gonna cry or get another beer?" I was like, "Can we do both?" Like,
yeah. And I loved the song and his delivery and his intensity. The only thing I don't like is the actual like quality of his larynx, and that's just a personal preference thing that I'm sure I'll get over with enough rewatches and seeing him do his thing. Like, his delivery was. I like the Tom that just walks on stage and just rocks a tearjerker and then gets off stage and is like, deal with it. Like, what a mic drop.
right?
Like, what? Like, I feel like he's again, the Tar Valon Tom. He's very depressed. He's singing sad songs and doesn't care if it makes people drink more or not. Like, I'm so curious to learn more about where he's at when the boys pick him up. Okay, back to the thing. Tinkers. We should probably talk about wolves and tinkers.
Yeah, the wolves. No Elias, but the wolves driving Perrin towards the tinkers to save his life. Thought was very clever.
I kind of like Elias being left out of it.
Yeah.
Perrin's always acted like he didn't have a mentor, so it makes sense to remove the ostensible mentor.
I'm there. Yeah, that Elias is an easy cut.
Yeah, you just need Hopper. You can't cut Hopper.
No.
You need
Elias,
Hopper.
Yeah.
Elias is like, bring him in later if you need another, like, C character, which you won't because you'll already be stuffed to the gills with characters. Like, fine.
And it makes Perrin a little more unique, a little more interesting. Like,
we've never seen this except for one other time. No, take that except for one other time out. Just, we've never seen this before. How about that?
Easy cut. and I'm not crying over it. You know, no more than I'm crying over every other scene that's cut that I want to see. Like, this is the thing.
Right.
Like I want. Don't get me wrong. I hope that there's some sort of extended edition, like they have in Lord of the Rings, where like. Yeah, I mean, we didn't include this for time, but there are 2 hours of us in the you know, Two Rivers filming scenes from Eye of the World that we would have tried out. You know, like I hope there's more content. There's probably not, but I would love to see more, you know, extended versions of all these episodes. And other, you know, just cut scenes would be great.
Just shut up and take my money.
Yeah, exactly. Let
Please.
me buy it.
And then the Tuathawan, I feel like we have to touch on briefly. Because I could smell the patchouli.
Yeah, yeah, dude, they didn't even try and hide the fact that these are hippies. They're just hippies. That's all we're doing.
They just got out of Coachella. They're wearing their drug rugs.
Yep.
Like, they probably have managed to sleep since the last time they took mushrooms. Maybe some of them are still currently tripping.
Yeah. I don't think there's anyone. There's no one time when somebody's not tripping in that band.
Yeah, like they're such hippies, and I love it. So I love it for a lot of reasons. First of all, I'm a hippie.
Yeah.
Second of all, I love that they're not leaning into Romani stereotypes or aesthetic. I'd much rather them make fun of Rainbow Family than Romani people. You know, like,
one's a lot less racist.
More, and one's way more American, right? You really want to get into, like, this is an American fantasy novel created in North America by white people. Rainbow Family are the nomadic pacifists.
Yep. Yeah. No, and the Romani don't have that the way of the Leaf going on at all.
No,
right? That's a
not
very
at all.
hippie
They
thing.
just have fortune telling and tinkering and cool colors. Like, the philosophy is way more American, psychedelic, nomad hippie.
And it's going to be great to see Aram with a military haircut after he starts following Perrin around.
Oh, God.
And,
So
like,
I misogyny paladins.
Yeah.
So I don't remember what server it was in, but somebody said they showed a picture of the Whitecloaks to a friend who'd never read the series or anything, and the friend's responses was, "What's with the misogyny paladins?" And I told this to Brandon, and he basically died after seeing the Whitecloak scene. He was like, accurate. So yeah, I see Aram maybe doing that, but I do. Again, this is something I'm going to have to rewatch and do some research on before the deep dive episode, but I saw a whole lot of dreadlocks in that group, and I'm not convinced that all of their hair types were appropriate for dreadlocks, and I might have some long-form feelings about that.
I mean, yeah, it's unfortunately, unfortunately, like, I've seen a lot of dreadlocks on people that didn't have appropriate hair types for it, so, in that community, so. He's not pulling that out of nowhere.
Yeah, and I don't want to get too deep into my first impressions because I want to rewatch and I want to take stills and I want to do a little reading, and I have thoughts that I will flesh out on Tuesday about that. But that is a thing we're going to be talking about. Fair enough. Tuathawan hair.
I think we may have to do our deep dives. We may not be able to do all 3 of them on Tuesday. If this first reaction hour-long video is any indication, I think our deep dive may not all happen on one day. Just FYI.
You know, that's I think
as WoTSpoilers, we need to only try and react to one at a time.
That's fair. Maybe we'll do Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, or I don't know.
Or we might just have to spread it out over 2 weeks.
No, we should do it all in 1 week. Yeah, no, I agree. I feel like we have done a gross disservice to all these episodes with how shallowly we've gone into them. And it's been an hour.
Yeah.
So I think you're right. Our deep dives are going to need to be 1 episode per. All right, we'll figure that out. Again, you people who are seeing this in the future, let us know how we do. So the other important thing here is the Nynaeve land thing. Nynaeve.
Yep.
The part where she bites him.
I missed that.
Where she goes to stab him, he's like, "You really tried to kill me," and he's holding her, and she fucking like goes for his hand.
I missed that. Yeah, I didn't see that at all.
And that's when he conks her on the head and gives her the fantasy knockout.
Yeah,
it's because she literally won't stop fighting, even when he's got her in a chokehold. She's just like, their whole dynamic is like their chemistry. I mean, we saw in the interview, like, they have chemistry. Daniel Henney said, like, "Oh yeah, we got chemistry. It's fine." And we've seen in the pictures on the blue carpet, like, they have chemistry. And that whole part of episode 3 was just like, I love it. I love them. I love the fact that he had to tie her up because she would literally try to kill him. And then there's the hook at the end of Logan.
Yeah. I mean, that's
like,
just
it's
a
him
preview
burning in the cage, and then it stops, and I'm like, I have to wait a week. Like, also, I was kind of burned out. I was really glad they cut it at 3 because I was getting burned out after 3 hours, and I didn't even watch the extras. The extras are something I have yet to watch. But I was also like, how can you give me one smoldering shot of Logain and then say I have to wait a whole week? This is ridiculous.
It is really ridiculous. But yeah, I'm glad I saw the first 2 and then had a break and then saw the third. So I didn't have all 3 at once because the first 2 were enough.
It was hard to get through the third, honestly. Like, it wasn't that I was waiting for the end, but I feel like I didn't get as much out of it. And so thank you, Amazon, for not dropping all 8 at once. Thank you.
I did want to talk about one more thing. The philosophy of the Dark Friend.
Yes.
I thought that was a very Ishamael. The pain has to stop.
And the whole concept that turning the dragon happens, and that Ishamael was a dragon who was turned, and getting that fleshed out more, because we don't get anything about the Dark really until halfway through the series. To have them just info dumping the Dark Friend beliefs so early is just, it gives so much more texture to the menace.
Yeah, definitely. And you never know who's going to be a Dark Friend too. That was really good. Yeah.
I mean, she was like one of the coolest characters yet, and she's a Dark Friend. Oh, and she got so intense. That actress's performance was just...
That was good.
She delivered those lines like they could kill you.
And apparently the favorite way to surprise someone with a death is get in on close and have something stab them through the back of the neck. Because, like, we do that to Trolloc that's attacking Tam. It happens to Dina with Tom. Like, it's definitely Egwene. It's through the chest, but it's basically the same thing. So they have a favorite, like, it's an easy stunt. They are surprising us. Like, whenever I've got a close-up on somebody, I'm like, okay, are they going to get stabbed through the back now? How about now? Like...
You can sometimes tell that with TV shows that they really like a particular makeup maneuver or a particular injury maneuver or particular kinds of stunts. You binge a show and you're like, they really like eye injury makeup. Like,
right.
Cool.
Someone on set was good at that, so they
like that's what they specialize in, and that's how this goes. And this is one of the signatures of this production.
My only problem with that is if you're going through the back, wouldn't you sever the spine? And so they're all like, but like, wouldn't your arms be like paralyzed?
I mean, if you want to talk like anatomy and shit.
Just a thought I had. Because I always see them, like, they do that thing where they, like, grope at their neck and they're like, oh my god, I've been stabbed, and then they die.
I guess maybe it's just that the spine is so narrow compared to the overall throat that you can just be like, it's only, like, nicked the spine and there's still motor control enough, and, like, the jugular's easier to break than the entire spinal column. But that's a squishy science question.
Fair enough.
I don't. I just can't get over how great all of this is.
Yeah.
I am ear to ear grinning. Like, I went to bed happy. I woke up happy. Like, I'm just happy. And if you want to rain on that parade, then, like, fuck off.
Well, and I've just been amazed how much the conversation about the show, like, just even our overview, we started to do what we do with the books, which is we kept wanting to deep dive into subjects. And so the fact that we can do that already encourages me that, like, there is depth, there is complexity, there is something here, and I'm really excited to get into it.
People who would listen to our podcast or who would be us making this podcast are who's involved with this series. And it fucking shows.
It shows.
It shows the people involved in making it care at the level we care. And the Easter eggs are going to go as deep as we can dig.
Yeah. They're just way more talented than I ever could be.
Well, there's a lot of them, in fairness. But it's... Rafe was into the series and wanted to direct it before he got tapped. The composer, same deal. I don't know who else, but those two alone. And then everyone else in the thing is reading them and getting absorbed into it. And we know what a great community it can be when a bunch of people are really into Wheel of Time. We know how much fun it can be and how much creative content can be made from that. And now we're seeing people who are professional film industry people taking that passion and collaboratively making it go. And we are so lucky.
And the way they're treating the fan base is fantastic. They're aware of us. They are grateful for.
I'm so glad that we have Matt Hatch as our like flagship person to like be the representative of all of us, because I feel like we know Matt. We've been on his show. We're part of the community that he represents. He's such a great guy.
Yeah.
It's so great that he's like the face.
And Nate Bliss, who does, his YouTube channel and
Dragon Mount people. They're all great.
I mean, Jason Denzel, who was at the premiere, gave us our first retweet and shout out, right?
Yeah.
He's the reason this podcast exists. So we are intimately connected with those people.
And they're representing us as a community.
Yeah.
And the cast is like, we feel you, we love you. And I'm like, I believe them because we have these guys who we know.
Yeah.
Bringing all this energy that we've helped create.
At the same time, I'm so glad I didn't get flown out to London. I don't know if I could have been objective about the show, and that's if I got to meet the cast and watch it in London and I don't know. There's so much to that is just insane.
I was thinking about this on the way home. We went to do errands today, and I was thinking about this on the drive home. I'm really grateful I didn't have to say no to that kind of opportunity or to say yes to it and then have it be really stressful. Of course, part of me is like, I want to be recognized as the most brilliant commentator ever. Of course, I want that recognition. But do I want all the work and the responsibility and the stress and the commitment? And no, honestly, I really want to be a fan that screams into the void about how much I am a fan and gets occasional cookies as a result. That's actually what I want. And that's what I'm currently getting. And it's wonderful to know that people like Matt Hatch and Jason Denzel are the ones doing all that work and doing all that travel and all that stress. They're doing that for us, and we help give them the fuel to tell the cast how excellent they are. That works for me. That's actually a great ecosystem relationship for me.
All right, well, I think that's all I have to say about those first 3 episodes without, really digging into them in detail, which I want to desperately. But yeah, you've reached the end of your wine. Yep. I've reached the end of my tea. And we've reached the end of our overview. Thank you so much for joining us. And we will be back to deep dive into some of the topics that you just heard us skim over in the last hour or so. So thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it, and we'll see you later this week.
All right, bye.
Bye. Why are we bad at this?
Because we're fucking posers. We are hacks and we are frauds.
Welcome to the Wheel of Time show.
We got this. We're professionals.
Thank you for listening to the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast. Rate us in the Apple Podcast app or support us on Patreon. Is that good enough?